The last person to see her alive? A 17-year-old local who would change his story so many times, investigators lost count. First, he claimed he dropped her off safely. Then, he said she had a seizure on the beach. Years later, he would claim something far more sinister. May 30th, 2005, a hotel room in Aruba sits eerily quiet. Luggage packed, passport untouched, flight departure in 2 hours. But the bed hasn't been slept in. 18-year-old Natalee Holloway was supposed to be heading home to Alabama after her graduation trip. Instead, she had vanished into the Caribbean night, leaving behind only questions that would haunt two nations for nearly 2 decades. But here's what makes this case truly chilling. On a tiny island just 20 miles long, where everyone knows everyone, how does a person simply disappear without a trace? What happened that night would destroy a family, captivate the world, and ultimately reveal a truth so dark it took 18 years to surface. This is the story of Natalee Holloway. But first, if you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries and true crime stories, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what comes next. Mountain Brook, Alabama, a picture-perfect suburb where success stories are written before graduation day. This was Natalee Holloway's world. Straight-A student, National Honor Society member, bound for the University of Alabama on a full scholarship. At 18, she had the kind of bright future that parents dream about for their children. Her classmates knew her as driven, vibrant, someone who lit up every room she entered. Her mother, Beth Twitty, had raised her to be independent and strong after her divorce from Natalee's father. They shared an unbreakable bond, the kind where a mother knows something is wrong before anyone else does. May 2005. Senior year was ending, and like thousands of American teenagers, Natalee's class planned their dream graduation trip. The destination, Aruba, a Dutch Caribbean island marketed as one happy island, safe, welcoming, perfect for young Americans to celebrate their freedom. 124 students, 7 chaperones, 5 days in paradise. None of them knew they were about to become part of the most haunting mystery in modern true crime history. May 29th, 2005. Sunday night in Oranjestad, and the warm Caribbean air was thick with anticipation. For Natalee and her classmates, this was their last night in paradise before returning to reality. The group had spent the evening at Carlos and Charlie's, a popular nightclub where tourists came to dance, drink, and forget about tomorrow. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and everyone was living in the moment. Natalee, usually cautious and responsible, was letting loose for once. She had earned this freedom for years of perfect grades, countless hours of studying, a full scholarship waiting for her back home. Tonight, she was just another 18-year-old celebrating the end of high school. Around 1:30 a.m., as the night was winding down, Natalee made a decision that would haunt her family forever. Instead of leaving with her classmates, she chose to go with 3 local young men she had met at the bar. Joran van der Sloot, a 17-year-old Dutch teenager living in Aruba, and his 2 friends, brothers Sadish and Deepak Kalpo. Her friends saw her laughing, walking toward a car in the parking lot. She seemed happy, carefree. Some classmates later said they called out to her, asking if she was sure about leaving with strangers. But the music was loud, the night was chaotic, and teenage decisions often happen in split seconds. The silver Honda disappeared into the Aruban night, carrying Natalee away from Carlos and Charlie's toward an unknown destination. Security cameras captured the car leaving the area, but what happened next would remain shrouded in mystery for nearly 2 decades. According to the 3 young men, they drove to the northern coast of the island, a stretch of beach popular with locals, darker and more isolated than the tourist areas. Joran later claimed they went to see sharks, though the story would change countless times over the years. The beach was empty, the ocean black under the moonless sky. Sadish and Deepak said they dropped Joran and Natalee off at the beach, then drove away, leaving the two teenagers alone in the darkness. They claimed Joran asked them to return later to pick him up. When they came back, they said Joran was alone, walking along the sand. "Where's the girl?" they asked. "I left her on the beach," Joran replied. She wanted to stay. But Natalee Holloway was not the type of person to stay alone on a dark beach in a foreign country. She was responsible, careful, always checking in with people who cared about her. Her friends knew this. Her mother knew this. And deep down, everyone who heard this story knew something was terribly wrong. The three young men drove back to their homes as the sun began to rise over Aruba on May 30th. They went to sleep in their own beds while somewhere on that island, Natalee Holloway had simply vanished into thin air. By 7 a.m., her classmates were checking out of their hotel, dragging suitcases to the lobby, preparing for their flight home. But Natalee's room key card hadn't been used. Her luggage remained packed and untouched. Her passport lay on the nightstand where she had left it the day before. The chaperones knocked on her door. No answer. They called her cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. A sick feeling began to spread through the group as they realized that one of their own was missing. The plane sat on the tarmac, 124 teenagers aboard, one seat empty. The pilot waited as long as he could, but eventually, Flight 784 to Birmingham, Alabama took off without Natalee Holloway. Back in Mountain Brook, Beth Twitty was expecting a call from her daughter to say she had landed safely. Instead, she received the phone call that every parent dreads, the one that changes everything forever. For months, the investigation seemed to hit dead ends. Joran van der Sloot and the Kalpoe brothers stuck to their story. They dropped Natalee at the beach. She wanted to stay. They left her there alive. No body, no witnesses, no evidence. But Joran couldn't stay quiet. In 2008, 3 years after Natalee's disappearance, a Dutch journalist secretly recorded Joran in the back of a car. What he captured would send shockwaves around the world. Joran, thinking he was talking to a friend, finally told what he claimed was the truth. She started shaking, he said on the hidden camera. She couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to do, so I called my friend who has a boat. We put her in the boat and took her out to sea. The recording was explosive. After years of claiming he left Natalee safely on the beach, Joran was now saying she had died, and he had disposed of her body in the ocean. The confession seemed to solve the mystery that had consumed international headlines for years. But then came another twist that left everyone stunned. When confronted with the recording, Joran immediately recanted everything. I was lying, he said. I made it all up. I wanted to look tough in front of my friend. He claimed the entire confession was fabricated, that he was still sticking to his original story about leaving her on the beach. The truth seemed to slip further away with each lie. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. In 2010, exactly 5 years to the day after Natalee's disappearance, Joran van der Sloot was in Lima, Peru. He met a young woman named Stephanie Flores at a casino. She was 21 years old, just 3 years older than Natalee had been. After winning money at poker, Stephanie agreed to go back to Joran's hotel room. Security cameras captured them entering the hotel together. Hours later, Joran was seen leaving alone, carrying bags and appearing agitated. When hotel staff discovered Stephanie's body in Joran's room, she had been beaten to death with a tennis racket. The same person who claimed innocence in Natalee's disappearance had become a confirmed killer. Suddenly, every lie Joran had told, every story that didn't add up, took on a much darker meaning. If he could brutally end one young woman's life, what had really happened to Natalee Holloway on that beach 18 years ago? The moment Natalee failed to board that plane, 2 investigations began simultaneously, one official, one driven by a mother's desperate love. Aruban police initially treated this as a missing person case, not a crime. They assumed the American teenager had simply wandered off or was sleeping off a hangover somewhere on the tiny island. But as hours turned into days, The reality became undeniable. Natalee Holloway had vanished. Beth Twitty didn't wait for official channels. Within 24 hours of learning her daughter was missing, she was on a plane to Aruba. She hired private investigators, organized search parties, and began knocking on doors herself. Her relentless pursuit would define the next 18 years of her life. The physical evidence was almost non-existent, which itself became the most haunting clue. No cell phone pings after 1:30 a.m. No ATM withdrawals. No credit card usage. No witnesses beyond the nightclub. It was as if Natalee had simply evaporated in the Caribbean heat. Security footage from Carlos and Charlie's showed her leaving with the 3 young men, but the cameras didn't extend to the beach areas where they claimed to have gone. The car Joran and the Calpo brothers used was searched multiple times, but forensic teams found nothing conclusive. From the beginning, the 3 young men's stories didn't align. In separate interviews, details changed. Times didn't match. Their alibis fell apart under scrutiny. Joran initially claimed they went to the lighthouse, then changed it to the beach. The Calpo brothers said they dropped them off at 2 a.m., then changed it to 2:30 a.m. But without a body or definitive proof of foul play, Aruban authorities couldn't hold them. Over the following months, all 3 suspects were arrested and released multiple times. Each arrest brought new hope to the Holloway family, and each release brought crushing disappointment. Joran seemed to enjoy the attention, giving interviews to international media where he would hint at knowing more than he was saying. In one particularly chilling moment, he told a reporter, "Everyone wants to know what happened to her. But I'm the only one who knows, and I'm not telling." The case became a magnet for false leads and attention seekers. Psychics claimed to have visions of Natalee's location. Tipsters called in sightings from across the Caribbean. Alleged accomplices came forward with stories that led nowhere. Each false lead consumed precious resources and gave the family hope that was ultimately crushed. One particularly cruel hoax involved someone claiming to have Natalee held captive in Venezuela. The family spent weeks pursuing this lead, only to discover it was completely fabricated. The most frustrating aspect for investigators was the missing time. Between 1:30 a.m. when Natalee left the nightclub and sunrise when the 3 young men returned to their homes, there was a window of approximately 5 hours. What happened during those critical hours remained a mystery that seemed impossible to solve. So far, police had no body, no crime scene, no physical evidence, and 3 suspects whose stories kept changing. The family had searched every beach, every cave, every inch of accessible coastline. International attention was intense, but answers remained elusive. The island's reputation was in ruins, but Natalee Holloway was still missing. Years passed with no progress until 2010, when Joran's arrest for Stephanie Flores' imprisonment changed everything. Suddenly, investigators had proof that the main suspect in Natalee's case was capable of extreme violence. The victim's family finally had leverage. But even with Joran behind bars in Peru, the truth about what happened to Natalee seemed destined to die with him. Until 2023, when desperation and a plea deal finally forced the words that had been locked away for 18 years. October 18th, 2023. A federal courtroom in Birmingham, Alabama. 18 years after Natalee Holloway vanished, Joran van der Sloot finally sat before her family, shackled and facing extortion charges. The deal was simple: tell the truth about what happened to Natalee and receive a reduced sentence. What came next would haunt everyone in that courtroom forever. "I went to pick up Natalee at her hotel," Joran began, his voice steady and emotionless. "We went to the beach. I tried to feel her up, and she refused. I insisted. She need me in the crotch. I was angry, and I kicked her extremely hard in the face." The courtroom fell silent. Beth Twitty, who had spent nearly 2 decades searching for answers, finally heard the words she had been dreading. She was laying down unconscious, possibly lifeless. I took her to the ocean and pushed her out as far as I could and left her there. 18 years of lies, manipulation, and false hope crystallized into one horrifying moment. Natalee Holloway had been attacked, left to drown, and thrown into the Caribbean Sea like she was nothing. But even in this moment of brutal honesty, questions remained. Joran accepted his plea deal, but Natalee's body has never been recovered. The ocean had kept it secret, and a family's search for closure remained incomplete. Today, Beth Twitty continues her advocacy for missing persons, turning her unimaginable pain into purpose. Natalee would have been 36 years old now, possibly married, maybe a mother herself. Instead, she remains frozen in time as the bright 18-year-old who trusted the wrong person on the wrong night. Her story serves as a reminder that evil can wear a friendly face, and that some truths are more terrible than the mysteries they replace. What do you think about this case? Do you believe Joran's final confession was the complete truth, or are there still secrets buried in the Caribbean? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true crime documentaries that uncover the darkest chapters of human nature.